arguably the best stills camera of the bunch. The Sony A7R had a lot to offer, but it wasn't quite fast or dependable enough to be a pro's workhorse camera. Iffy autofocus, a loud shutter, and horrible battery life don't exactly make a great first impression. However, a sequel is finally here in the form of the 42-megapixel Sony Alpha A7R II, MSRP $3,200 body only. But a camera isn't just the performance of its sensor, it's the sum of a great many parts. In this regard, the A7R II is a far more competent and serious pro-ready camera than its predecessor. The battery life is as bad as ever, but with improved autofocus, optical stabilization, and 4K video, the A7R II taps into the series' near-limitless potential. But with so many excellent full-frame cameras on the market, can it justify the price? Design and handling. There's a lot to love, and hate, in such a small body. When you first pull the A7R II out of the box, you'll notice that it is a blocky, angular beast of a camera. It's smaller than most full-frame DSLRs, but it's thicker than most mirrorless cameras. Its body is made primarily of a lightweight magnesium alloy, but it's still got a satisfying heft to it. Once you start shooting, you'll appreciate the robust chunky controls. The grip is deeper than it was on the original, though a bit short, and all of the primary controls you'll need are within reach. Placing the focus mode selector switch underneath your thumb's natural resting place was a nice touch, and Sony's menu systems are relatively simple to operate. It definitely takes some getting used to, but you shouldn't have to hunt too much for your desired settings. It's not all roses, though. The grip is a tad too short, and I almost always found my pinky hanging off the bottom of the camera. While that's the classy way to take photos, it is uncomfortable, and it makes the camera tougher to grip. You'll definitely notice that if you've got exceptionally heavy glass on your A7R II. You might be able to solve the issue with a battery grip, but it's another purchase to be made. Features. One thing is quite clear, the A7R II is stuffed to the gills with features, some useful, others not so much. Items like 4K video, a monster 42.4 megapixel sensor, incredible in-body image stabilization, and in-viewfinder focus assist all make for a flagship level camera. And while the A7R II isn't the fastest with its burst speed of 5.5 frames per second, it's vastly improved over the original. It's like night and day. For starters, the 5-axis image stabilization works fantastically well. Brought to the Alpha line of cameras with the release of the A7 II, this feature does a great job of eliminating the ill effects of shaky hands at low shutter speeds. Obviously, this is great news for shooting stills in low light, but it's also stellar for videographers, too. Like the rest of the Sony lineup, focus peaking and a variety focusing modes make their appearance on the A7R II. You'll also probably make good use out of the focus magnifier if you're apt to lean on manual focus for macro shots, and the flexible focus spot modes are similarly useful. We would have loved to have seen a system much like the one found on the Panasonic GX8 where you use your thumb on the touchscreen to move your focus spot on the fly, but hey, no camera's perfect. Performance. The Sony A7R II put on an absolute clinic in our lab tests, passing nearly every one. While there are still nagging concerns about these high-resolution sensors, the 42.4 megapixel sensor in this camera is simply one of the best on the market, especially with the ability to shoot in 14-bit RAW. The file sizes are enormous, but at least memory is cheaper than ever. The sensor's major advantage is its superb dynamic range, allowing you to push exposure and post-processing without suffering excessive loss of detail or bending. In an upcoming software update, the A7R II is going to be able to enjoy the same 14-bit uncompressed RAW as the upcoming A7S II. Additionally, shots taken with the Sony A7R II will have a lot more detail and shadows thanks to the sensor's low noise floor. At 100%, the 42 megapixel shots can look fairly noisy, but the signal-to-noise ratio is exceptionally high. The A7R II is an unbelievably good camera. Where the A7 II was little more than a minor edit of the original, the A7R II is a full-blown redraft. It carries over all the promise of the original, while improving it in almost every way. With a better sensor, 4K video, improved image quality, a vastly more responsive shooting experience, and slightly refined controls, the A7R II is just more enjoyable to shoot with. There's no doubting that the original A7R was capable of some incredible imagery, but it always felt like you were fighting the camera, rather than using it. But it's not perfect. And if you're going to shell out over $3,000 for a camera, Especially if it's for your job, you want it to be perfect. There are enough little annoyances that add up to an experience that doesn't feel quite as smooth as it should. And the thin first-party lens selection and abysmal battery life isn't helping things, either.